Hey, this is Rich Hart. Welcome back to the Rich Hart Show. And my special guest with me is Shawnta Hooks.
Hello.
Miss Hooks, hello.
Hello.
NSA fan.
Yes.
Shawnta, you have taken a journey, all right, from, and so many different changes in what you do.
Yes.
All right. And so I'm going to let the audience hear about some of those changes themselves from CPA.
Yeah.
All right. From a corporate genius,
Yes.
in some areas, all right, and then climbing into your inner self.
Mm.
All right, so let's start talking about some of that. So how's this journey really started affecting what you're doing? All right, let's talk about your CPA.
Yeah.
Such an exciting opportunity.
You know what it was? I started my career with PricewaterhouseCoopers over 20 years ago as an intern here in Atlanta.
Good.
And didn't realize how much audit related to who I truly am. I started in the audit track, external audit, which is all about pattern assessment, pattern recognition.
Sure.
And, you know, it was a really interesting career. It bloomed from working in external audit to internal audit and eventually into leadership within governance.
Good.
And so my career spanned 20 years in those disciplines. And within like the 18th year, I was promoted. I was working at one of the top
only 18 years,
After 18 years, you know, that's when the transition really happened.
Corporate America, welcome.
Right, here we go. And the role that really changed everything for me was when I was promoted to automation strategist in 2018 at Synchrony Financial.
Okay.
Now, 2018, to give you some perspective, this is prior to AI and automation as we know it today, here 2026.
So a whole new embarkment.
Right. It was a lot of fear associated with my role. It didn't help that the role was born out of a reorg. So a lot of people lost their jobs. They brought me in to be the strategist to help automate manual governance processes. So the role that I had was met with a lot of fear, a lot of toxicity. And it put me in a position where for the first time in my career, I started to really question myself.
Okay.
Imposter syndrome rose through the roof, the self-doubt, the negative self-talk. It didn't help that I was a new mom. I was in a relationship with my son's father that was falling apart. My father had just passed away. So a lot of things were happening at the same time that had me start to pay a little more attention to this topic of mindfulness and meditation. Right. Not something as a former CPA that I was ever really into.
Complete dichotomy, opposite end of the spectrum, without a doubt.
And especially because I'm a very analytical person, you know, and I'm very intellectual individual, and I didn't understand it from an intellectual perspective. But it started to catch my eye at a conference, listening to a couple of keynote speakers talk about it. And when I went home from a conference in June of 2018, I started to just explore it casually, reading books, watching YouTube videos. And within, about a year, I made it a lifestyle habit. I started to practice mindfulness every day for about 20 months a day, or 20 minutes.
Hold on a second. Let's back up. Mindfulness. All right, let's discuss this just for a little bit, because folks themselves, we don't want to get too much over, because there are a lot of folks themselves that really need to understand what this fullness of mindness is all about. So what is this mindfulness
especially
about?
now? Mindfulness, my definition, I say this from the stage all the time, mindfulness is paying attention on purpose without judgment.
Good.
Notice I didn't mention breath work.
Nope, not at all.
I didn't mention any spiritual faith. It is the act, the point of your being when you are in the present moment without judgment on purpose.
Good.
And so understanding it from that perspective helped me understand that anything could be a mindful moment.
Sure.
Including the work that I did. And so after practicing it, every day, 20 minutes a day, my work started to improve. My performance under pressure started to actually improve because I stopped taking so many things personal. The judgment started to relax. The assumptions that I were making, in the role that I had.
Carrying that load, that baggage load.
Carrying this load, and some of it, in relation to who I am as a Black woman in this, largely white male-dominated industry, and making assumptions, taking things personal. Suddenly, after about 6 months of consistent practice, that stuff started to dissolve.
Okay, good.
I started to develop, neurological courage to have hard conversations that I had been avoiding. So in February of 2020, right before COVID, I had the courage to reach out to the chief HR officer at Synchrony, which was where I was working at the time. At the time, they really wanted to expand, the leadership capabilities within innovation and within creative thinking. And I thought to myself, watching this webcast, we've never had a class that brought in that's a great what, but how?
Yeah, right.
How do you actually neurologically change your mind? I've been studying how, and I've been seeing it happen in my life, having my own audit, of being able to see how it's happening. So I reached out to him, and he was very open. And then COVID hit. And so when COVID hit, obviously pressure, it increased significantly for everyone. Yet I still had this sort of calmness about myself, and my performance was still, actually taking off under this pressure. So I decided, I talked to him and I talked to other leaders, and I created a community. Created a community called the Stillness Loop that started with 5 employees that were interested in having this conversation around connection at work through mindful practices. And it blew up. In about 18 months, there were over 500 members of this community. I was being asked to deliver talks all over the company. Hey, my team is dealing with, stress. Can you come and talk to us?
Sure, right.
That's how my speaking career was born.
Good enough.
Very organically. And then I landed my first external engagement with the CFO of a manufacturing organization. And that's when it hit, this is needed. There's a market for this. There's a market for someone that doesn't just speak about mindfulness and belonging and connection from a clinical or from a philosophical perspective, but from a very grounded, practical, how does this impact performance perspective? And I launched my speaking career while I still had my job. I got promoted. I was now the governance leader for the whole sales organization.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And I had my community. So I had like 2 jobs. I had this community that I was doing, and I had my job. And I was thinking about exiting, slowly kind of planting the seeds to exit and do this full time. But as fate would have it, one day I had a Zoom one-on-one meeting with my manager. And mid-sentence during our call, he had a heart attack and died.
On the phone.
On the phone.
Right there.
I had to contact his assistant, who contacted his wife, who called the paramedics, and I'm literally watching this happen on my computer screen.
There's an awakening for you.
An incredible awakening, right? And he was an incredible leader, this is the best leader of my entire career, the first leader to ever truly see me and my capability and fully supported the work that I was doing. So when he passed away, it was a stark wake-up call on what the fragility of life really means. How someone can be here together one moment and then literally something else shattered the next moment. And I took it as a wake-up call to really prioritize this work. So I took a sabbatical from work. I was out for a year. And during that year, I went down, extreme healing and retrospection and really understanding what this meant, to the greater picture of my life, my greater purpose. And when my sabbatical ended, I decided to not return. And, and I sold my house and downsized and, really set myself up to be able to go on this entrepreneurial journey, this path of serving humanity really during these really challenging times in a way where I didn't crack under pressure.
Sure.
Right. And so since then, it's been 3 years now that I've been a full-time entrepreneur.
Good deal.
Teaching and speaking on this platform, of which I call the Inner Audit.
Inner Audit, right.
The Inner Audit, which is a decision clarity system that allows people to develop greater self-governance during these very noisy times so that they can ultimately really pressure-proof themselves during these challenging and volatile experiences that we all face, whether it's your team being downsized or whether it is you having to deal with aging parents, whether it's having to deal with loss as dramatic as death.
Sure.
Right? All of those experiences create pressure. And what I teach people how to do is navigate pressure with clarity so that they don't negatively impact their performance.
What kind of groups themselves most gravitate, to this inner, navigation?
Yeah, I support a lot of early career programs.
Okay.
So, programs like what I started as an intern with PricewaterhouseCoopers. Okay. So I do a lot of work with early career programs. I actually just spoke at a conference last week that was devoted to program managers of early talent. As well as high potential leadership development programs. So I do a lot of work within the corporate spaces, also within associations, really helping, those pockets of individuals of leadership understand how the changes that are happening, whether you're starting your career or navigating going from individual contributor to people leader or going from people leader to C-suite.
Right.
Those are the pockets that I tend to serve the most, is that pocket of change where pressure hits the most and you need some system to help you regulate yourself during that pressure.
Sure. Middle, upper type management positions themselves where they find themselves in probably more challenging, stressful modes because they're getting it from the bottom and getting it from the top.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So let's just talk about results. How are you tracking results on this, though?
Yeah. I am an assessment queen.
Given we did
audit,
talk about that, didn't we? Yes, without a doubt. And so you designed your own
I designed
review,
my own
assessment. Right.
Yes, I designed my own assessment. It's called the Pattern Intelligence Assessment.
Okay.
And it is rooted in helping you understand your patterns under pressure. Mm-hmm. And the questions are different from any other assessment that's out there. They're very situational. When you get negative feedback, how do you respond?
Right.
When you experience rejection, how do you respond? And it produces a report that gives you a variety of information, specifically around, if you think of two walls, right? Most people, when pressure hits, they either speed up or they shut down.
Shut down or slow down.
Right.
And
or
then
slow
stop.
Down and stop, right? The spectrum. And so I try to help leaders get off the wall and into secure leadership.
Good.
And so the assessment is one way that I am serving my clients these days. And then also really staying with the client throughout the entire journey. I have developed a few other assessments to really, gauge the NPS, the Net Promoter Score of every experience that I deliver, whether it's a keynote or a workshop, that really gets to the before and after. How did you feel when you entered this experience? And how did you feel when you left this experience?
Sure, right.
And I also use that same metric during my keynotes and my experiences. They're all very experiential. We do mindset practices, mindfulness practices, nervous system regulation practices during the experiences. And after every practice, I ask them to pause and reflect, to really think about what changed, what shifted. And if nothing shifted, that's okay too.
Sure.
And so I have collected literally thousands of pieces of data on all of my experiences to date that showcase the delta.
Right.
How did people enter? How did they leave? And then what is their integration look like?
Right,
the most important part. How are they actually integrating this work into their life? And I'm proud to say that I have several clients that are repeat. I have several clients, individual and organizations, that are constantly reaching out to me, showing up to my free experiences because they really understand the value and the utility of how this shows up in their life.
Good. I'm taking this as an extreme reflection of confidence. Mm-hmm. People themselves realize that there is another spectrum or another area to building a confidence level. Most folks themselves, from leaders, middle managers, and those, where they may fail sometimes is planning. We understand that. Mm-hmm. But the other side is really having the confidence to say, yes, I can do this.
Right.
Alrighty. And with the confidence themselves, I would say confidence eliminates stress. Mm-hmm. All right. Knowing what you do, how you do, why you do what you do. Mm-hmm. All right. To make it part of the journey, because what you said, you were on a journey. We're all on journeys.
Right.
All right. I'm that close from being that far away every day.
Right. Yeah.
But the fact itself that those individuals, I'm probably out of your reporting, and I'm just speculating, but you could probably find that a lot of folks themselves grew in their abilities and confidence levels, all right, to do their job more productively and profitable.
Oh, yeah. And confidence there's a neurological angle to confidence, right? When the amygdala, the part of our brain that controls our stress, hijacks our prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that controls our decision-making, right? When that happens, and oftentimes it happens and we're not aware of it, right? When that happens, that puts us in a state of fight, flight, freeze.
Yeah.
And when we're in that state of fight, flight, freeze, we're not worried about being confident. We're worried about surviving.
Sure.
And so the biggest risk to confidence is being stuck in survival mode.
Right.
And right now, people are really stuck in survival mode.
Oh, they are stuck. Yeah.
They are afraid of AI. And not just afraid, right? I talk to people, I usually have about 5 calls, a day sometimes, just talking to clients and talking to individuals. And AI, the way workplaces are changing and transforming as it relates to AI, and the shrinkage is real. I talk to people constantly that had a job one day and don't have a job the next, right? And so that impacts our confidence. But more importantly, we don't understand what is our default behavior when we get into that state where our amygdala has hijacked and our confidence is now suppressed. What is your go-to mode, right? And that's the area that I like to focus on, is helping them using the audit framework that I was taught, going into organizations and assessing processes, understanding how a process works and what is the root cause breakdown, right? What actually caused this thing to fail, and how do we mitigate the risk of it failing again?
Sure.
I took that exact same framework, and now I teach people how to apply that framework to themselves. And it's the assessment is the starting point. The keynotes and the workshops are another aspect of it. But the most important aspect of it is giving you the tools to actually navigate this in the moment.
Sure.
What happens when there is no Shawnta around?
I don't know.
Right? When there is no, I mean, I would love to be around, clone myself and be involved in everyone's
moment
of pressure.
My mother never wanted that.
But the truth is, what tools do people have in the moment when pressure hits? And so as a result of that, I've created a custom GPT that I use in all of my experiences that has been coded by myself as a former automation strategist. I'm very familiar with how to code and, how to use my voice to actually program. And so I've created a custom GPT that teaches you how to navigate back to decision clarity when pressure hits using one of my favorite frameworks. I'm trained in Six Sigma. For process management.
Been there, done that. Exactly.
Six Sigma for anyone that is looking into this is a process management.
That's the loony bin for us.
Yeah. It's a process management framework used in manufacturing organizations to understand why did something break. Right? It's one thing if something breaks and you take the widget off the thing and then you fix it and then you put it back on, but then it could break again if you don't actually assess why it broke. Right? And so one of my favorite tools within Six Sigma was 5 why analysis.
Okay.
And so that is the basis of my framework, is teaching people how to ask themselves why 5 times, which can be tricky.
It is.
It's not as straightforward as it sounds. Right. And that's where the AI, I love technology. AI is a really incredible tool for that. Right. And so programming the GPT to run, you take your scenario, you voice note or type it in, I'm frustrated because AI pressure layoff, or my husband is getting on my nerves, right? Personal or professional. Pressure is pressure. And then from there, it will give you a whole report out, doing the 5 why analysis, using some reflection, using what I call CDC, catching, diagnosing, and then converting. Converting with a practice that is rooted in either allowing you to, in the moment, solve that issue of pressure, or how do you actually reframe and rewire your patterns under pressure so that now that we've done the diagnosis, when that pressure hits again, perhaps there's a lower probability that you will respond on those walls of shut down or speed up.
Sound like you're a breakthrough mind specialist.
I love that. I'll put that on my
We only charge $1 for that, so that's all right. That's fine. I want to dive down a little bit deeper into your inner already and what we're talking about, this new journey itself. Let's really dive down. Let's cut down to it. You get an individual who calls you up, turns around and says, okay, I'm having a problem here. All right, these are my dilemmas. These are my objectives. These are my goals themselves. And your job analytically, all right, physically, mentally, emotionally, perhaps maybe spiritually out there, is to figure already how that brain cell wired. We talked about certain parts of the brain making those decision-making processes. How is this inner really developing into helping folks? And is it a period of time? Is it taking time? Is it working with individuals themselves that have some kind of at least inner working? All righty. How's it work?
Yeah, I work with organizations that are really serious about developing leaders that are present enough to be able to self-manage themselves during stress.
Okay.
Right? And that's a skill. Yeah. Right? Use the word self-control, self-discipline, self-governance.
Right.
That is what we need right now. The world is very noisy. And those that are unable to discern and hear their own voice with clarity, those are the ones that are going to actually excel in this age of AI.
Okay.
And so the first step is the assessment, right? The assessment, I give that assessment to prospects, to clients, and to individuals. And I include it in all of my experiences. And so the assessment gives you the baseline of where you are when pressure hits. And from there, depending on your pressure profile, you instantly, just with the report, before I open or say any words whatsoever, you instantly have a perspective on yourself that you didn't have before.
Right, exactly.
And that's the thing that many people are needing, right? Teams, they need perspective that takes them out of paranoia and puts them into a mindset where they truly believe that things are perhaps happening for the greater good of everything.
Sure. Identification, all right, to what it is their purpose is and what they can fulfill.
Right. And even before we get to purpose, right? Purpose, I've talked to people and they're like, purpose, I'm just trying to survive.
Right, exactly.
Right? I'm just trying to, get food on the table and not get fired and, and pay my rent, that continues to go up, or my mortgage, and not have to refinance for the third time.
Sure.
Right. And so sometimes people are so detached from purpose because they're going so fast, right? Or they're shutting down. Both have risk, right? And so what I present is a philosophy rooted in risk management, what is the risk of operating in complete speed up or shutdown?
Right.
Well, the risk is you don't have the opportunity to actually see yourself with greater clarity, to make decisions with clarity, right? And not in that hyper speed up, frantic, anxious energy, right? And so the first step really is the self-assessment. But then in the experiences, the live experiences, in person or virtual, I take them through my framework. I do a lot of storytelling. I, fortunately or unfortunately, have just so many really rich stories that help me relay relatability to audiences and really meet them where they are.
Sure.
I don't typically talk to audiences that I'm glad you asked me to define mindfulness, because my audiences are high performers. They're typically in the financial services space, GE Aerospace and Synchrony Financial are some of my clients. And they don't necessarily speak the language of mindfulness, but they do speak the language of pressure. And they do speak the language of wanting to understand how to actually regulate their performance under pressure.
Type A?
Lots of type A.
Yeah, I figured as much.
Lots of type A.
Do you find most of these folks themselves in the type A, they're very direct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I've gone through the color code and everything else like this, crimson, red, okay, with a slight tad of blue, all right, without a doubt. But the fact itself is it their personal lives driving their business or business driving their personal?
Business is driving personal, but then it's a little bit of both, right?
Okay.
Our personal lives impact our business, and our business impacts our personal.
Sure.
And what I find, especially
that's the A-type person,
right?
Because they don't leave work at home, and they don't leave home at work.
Exactly. And they tend to be on the spectrum of wanting to control outcomes, right? And not being able to detach from the future stated outcome.
And they're direct too as well.
And they're very direct. They're very direct, and we all are suffering from short attention spans, and sometimes they can have even shorter attention spans. And so, again, the risk of all of that is that you're speeding so fast, there's a risk of making mistakes.
Sure,
like plain, and again, I go back to my process.
And there's a fear out there.
There's the fear.
People don't want to make those mistakes. They don't want to be called out for it. They don't want to be singled out already. And that's your type A, without it 100%.
Yeah.
All right. But how do you help people themselves overcome that? And I'm not asking you to change a type A person, because you won't do it.
Right.
All right. It's ingrained DNA. And that's just how they move. They move at 1 billion miles an hour.
Absolutely.
And if they're going to mow you down, they're going to mow you down.
Yeah.
Fine. All right. Unfortunately, we have a lot of those types of people in business, and you got to deal with those people differently. But now dealing with that type of person to say, okay, there's got to be a sense of, you got to relax a little bit. Okay. You can't force something, because people themselves may not take your direction as being collaborative.
Right.
It's probably more of competitive.
Right.
All right. So how are you helping people themselves like that?
Yeah. It's, first of all, helping them reframe their mindset on topics like rest, right? Really seeing rest as a strategy, seeing slowing down as a strategy. And most of them, they feel the pressure. Like they typically, they're coming to me or they have conversations with me, understanding that the way that they have been behaving is no longer sustainable.
All right.
They're aging. So if you think demographically, the majority of the people that I see are older millennials or Gen X, right? And so they're at an age where introspection is a bit more appealing than it used to be, whether they're type A or not. And so my first job is to help them understand the value proposition of everything that I do, right? What is the value proposition? How is this going to actually not just improve your life, right? That's very abstract, but how is it going to improve the things that you care about? And for the folks that I talk to, they care about doing a good job.
Sure.
Right. And I would never tell someone to be less ambitious. I'm a very ambitious person.
Sure.
Yet when I started to actually learn how to strategically slow down, and I'm talking 5 minutes, starting with 5, working my way up to 15 at most, learning how to make this a lifestyle habit. Right. Helping them understand that just like you go to the gym, I always ask this question in my keynotes, raise your hand if you practice mindfulness on a regular basis. Very few hands go up. Raise your hand if you drink water every day. Every hand goes up. Raise your hand if you go to the gym. Most hands go up, right? 20 or say 50, 100 years ago, mindfulness was not something that we thought of as a lifestyle habit, just like exercising and drinking water every day.
Exactly.
Those are fairly new concepts. And so my job is to first help them understand the value proposition. This is going to rewire your nervous system. It's going to rewire your brain. It's going to create neuroplasticity, which is going to actually change the brain so that perhaps you are less reactive in those moments where you don't need to be. And one of the things that always hits is people tell me all the time, I don't meditate because my mind won't stop wandering and racing. And I always give this story. One time I was looking at my son's toothbrush. And I said, saying that you can't meditate because your mind won't stop wandering and racing is saying that you can't brush your teeth because they're dirty.
That's right.
You brush your teeth because they're dirty.
Yeah, right.
You meditate because your mind races, right? And so simple reframes like that. I'm the queen of the reframe. And so once they understand and they have the buy-in, right, through story, through analogy, through, old tricks, now they're open. Right. And I give them the experience. Right. That's the thing that transforms everything, allowing them the opportunity to give themselves permission in a contained environment to actually see what it feels like in the body, in the mind, in the system, aspects that they've never paid attention to before.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. They experience it for themselves. I always say, don't take my word for it.
Yeah, right.
Experience it for yourself.
Self-awareness,
but more so, what is the feeling? Like, how does it feel? How did you actually transition in that moment? And when they experience, I feel better.
Yeah, right.
Right? Now they have the buy-in to actually perhaps make this a habit.
Sure.
And once you make it a habit, the science is conclusive, right?
Yeah, right.
That if you practice nervous system regulation, mindfulness, mind gym, whatever you want to call it, whatever language resonates with you, right? Exactly. Mental fitness, right? Lots of words that say the same thing. If you do this on a consistent basis, you will change.
Sure.
Your courage will increase. Your confidence will increase. Your ability to feel more calm during stressful, high-stakes moments will increase. And most importantly, your decision-making will improve.
Right, exactly. I think one of the bigger problems or bigger issues themselves that people may have is the planning aspect. Mm-hmm. Okay, and you've heard the adage: if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Okay, how does planning come into this? Because now you're asking people to make this change. All right, undocumented. Okay, so now it's getting down, and your assessment, your review itself gets it down to really documented. All right, these are the things that are important. Are they now taking that as a planning step? And now moving forward, all right, because I'm thinking itself, you'd get a lot quicker result, all right, when people themselves start to self-actualize.
Absolutely.
All right, what they're doing, how they're doing, why they're doing what they're doing, all right, to make an impact. Because it's just like, I want to lose 10 pounds, okay? All right, is it going to work eating that Entenmann's cake? No disregard to Entenmann's whatsoever, okay? It was good cookie, good cake. But the fact itself is that, you've got to really put, actions in place and accountability in place, and you have to do some work on it. Is that one of the hardest parts?
It can be. And again, mindset is everything because the practices that I'm talking about, especially meeting people where they are, starts with 5 minutes.
Right.
And sometimes less than that. And also what I find is that people are anxious about stillness.
Sure.
They're anxious about silence. They really, one of the great philosophers, Blaise Pascal, once said that all of humanity would change if man could sit with himself alone in a room. Right. And so I don't go in expecting people to do a silent retreat for an hour. Right. Because that is, unrealistic.
Hot yoga.
Exactly. But what I do is I leverage tools and techniques that are rooted in science that meet people where they are. So I am from Detroit originally. Shout out to Detroit.
Couldn't tell. Yeah.
And I love music. Motown. I bring that up because music was actually the entry point for me into mindfulness. One of the first times that I practiced meditation successfully was with song. It was with an R&B song, Frankie Beverly and Mays, the song Joy and Pain, which is a mid-tempo song. It's not your traditional meditation music. It's music that I've been listening to my entire life. But I learned about the science of mindful music listening and how to actually do that. And when I did that, it changed everything. And so I use music. It's actually one of my clarity protocols, which are the practices in the assessment. And in my sessions, I give clarity protocols. These are the protocols that you do to either prevent yourself from suffering under pressure, to help yourself in the moment with pressure, and or to rewire your mindset in the background. And so music, as well as nature, as well as movement, are some of my favorite techniques because people are already including those in their lifestyles. And so the trick is not to create a new thing. It is to teach people how to do the things that they do in a mindful way. Again, mindfulness in the present moment, on purpose, without judgment. So how do you make your work a mindful moment? How do you make the time with your children a mindful moment? How do you make the time with your employee during your one-on-one a moment where you're actually looking at them eye to eye and you're paying attention without judgment? And that counts, right? So helping them understand all the moments, all the checklist of moments in their life that they're currently not doing in a mindful way. How can you change that into a mindful moment? And then I have the clarity protocols that can support you in noticing more of those moments so that eventually you look up. And now if your mind wandered or if you experienced, let's just say 1,000 moments where you are not here, right? Your mind is either in the future or it's in the past. Let's say you have 1,000 of those. After you go through my programs, maybe you have 500.
Yeah, right.
Right? And that's it. Incremental. How do I change those patterns so that I have less moments where I am feeling disconnected from myself and from the work that I do and from the people that I love?
Good. If you haven't taken a mindful assessment, I think I'd recommend it. All right? Yes. Find out where you are, what you do, how you do what you do. Yeah. Okay, first of all. But to really reach out, all right, and really perhaps maybe recreate the real you. That's or the person of self that you really wanted to be.
That's it. Because I think people are tired of wearing a mask. Mm-hmm. Right. And that is across all demographics, all ages, all races, all genders. Yeah, we have worn masks for so much of our lives. Mm-hmm. And we're finding in this age of AI that it's not as sustainable. No. And people are checking out left and right, in many ways, physically, emotionally, sure. And just having
they're fed up.
Crises, right? Like, I don't know about you, but I talk to people so often that are just in the middle of divorce, right? And, just this life moments that are happening in such a way that is creating pressure in ways that they've never experienced before. And if you're in my generation, I'm an older millennial, so I was not taught these tools. And so the reason I do all the work that I do is to give people the tools that I wish I had.
That's right. They acquire and attain.
Exactly. When I was going through my divorce and when I was experiencing layoffs, fun story, when I had my son, he's now 9, Amir, I was working at a different company right around the corner from here. And I was on maternity leave. I went back to work on a Monday, was laid off on Thursday.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. It's quick. What'd you do to piss him off?
That's a story for another day. There's a story related to that I tell in some of my experiences.
Oh my gosh.
But
crazy.
Laid off. But again, that transition. I didn't go back to work expecting to not have a job. And that's when I ended up getting the job at Synchrony. Okay. Which is the job that, really catapulted me into this work that I do. And Synchrony is now one of my clients.
That's good. Right? They should be.
And they're number one of the great places, not that I work for them, but they're an incredible company, incredible culture. And I always mention them because they put so much emphasis on developing leaders that are bold, that are connected, and that really care. Yeah, right. And so being in that environment helped develop me as a leader with those same values. Good. And now I bring that into the work that I share with others.
Good deal. Shawnta Hooks, if there's one thing that you'd like to leave with our audience today, all right, and your audience themselves is going to be hearing and listening what these new profound areas of mindfulness is going to take them, okay? What would be one thing that you would leave them with?
Take away the word mindfulness, okay, right? Because it's a word that really, can create a certain perspective. Take that away. The thing that people need most right now is clarity and discernment. Mm-hmm. And so the one thing that I want people to take away is that the path to clarity is a self path. No one can give you clarity. You can go to all the leadership development courses and you can listen to all the amazing speakers and you can watch all the YouTube videos. But if you don't have the self-discipline and the self-governance and the internal guidance to be able to discern what is true and what is not, what is for you and what is not, how to, like one of my favorite phrases is chew the meat and spit the fat.
Yeah, right.
Right? If you are chewing and you can't tell that it's fat, and you continue to digest fat.
I remember those days.
Right? There are going to be consequences. There's a risk to that.
Right.
And so the analogy is really like the lack of clarity that we have is the fat.
Right.
The delicious prime meat is the clarity.
Sure.
And so the path to clarity is discernment. It's knowing. And you have to do the work. And so the work that I do supports people in doing the work. I don't consider myself to be a coach. I consider myself to be a guide.
Good.
Because what I like to do is create containers where I create structure and, the environment for people to do the work. And I give them the space to do it, understanding that life is busy and sometimes I need a container myself. That's what got me to where I am. Right. But then I give them the tools so that when the container has closed, how do you bring this into your lifestyle? Right. So that bit by bit, you develop greater discernment and you develop a greater inner voice to be able to know what's for you and what isn't. And so then you can make decisions in life from that clear perspective and not from that fatty perspective.
Shawnta Hooks, the mindfulness tour guide.
There we go. I like that.
Got a bunch of them here. Without a doubt. Yeah. Shawnta, it's been my honor. Shawnta.
That's
Shawnta.
Okay.
What is it?
Shawnta.
Shawnta. Shawnta, it's been an honor and distinct pleasure itself to have you on the show.
Yes,
I want to thank you very much. One more time, how do people get in contact with you?
My website, Shawnta, SHAWNTA, Hooks, HOOKS.com, as well as LinkedIn and YouTube, same Shawnta Hooks.
Good deal. Superb. Hey, this is another session out and great program mail with Rich Hart Global Studios, Global Media, Value Core, and all the rest of the crazy entities we have around here. This is Rich Hart. Thank you for joining us on the Rich Hart Show, and we shall talk to you real soon. Thank you very much. God bless. Be safe. Safe travels. Take care. Bye-bye now.